Hi everyone, this is Malini Rao here, and today we'll be talking about the robust cloud security strategies and innovations as it was presented during the Information Security Summit and CISO Awards that had happened during the month of September. Um, this is just the disclaimer slide. I'm not promoting or endorsing any cloud service provider or products in this presentation, and ensuring responsible cybersecurity. This material is copyrighted, so please do not copy or circulate this material without my permission. And anyways, I'm uploading it on YouTube, so you can refer it back anytime. So in the agenda, we are talking about basics of cloud computing, basically what is cloud computing models, cloud deployment strategy. We'll also discuss what is on-prem versus cloud architecture, why we are moving to or migrating to cloud. I mean, what are the advantages of migrating to the cloud? We'll also see the latest data breaches on the cloud that has happened in the recent past, and we'll look at the lessons learned and understand what are the top threats in the cloud. We'll also look at developing robust and effective cloud security strategy. That's why we all are here in the conference, to understand the cloud security strategy and what are the best practices. We'll also see some of the latest innovations to be considered as part of your cloud security strategy. When I'm saying cloud security strategy, this could be your entire cloud strategy as part of your cloud governance model that you will be defining. So the security folks like the CISO and the security office need to be part of the cloud center of excellence. We'll also have a Q&A session if the time permits, because I was given like only 20 minutes to speak on this presentation. But here I'll be covering, since I'm recording it later on, I'm covering as much as possible. If you have any questions, you can always write back to me and contact me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll get back to you. This slide is just, I'm giving here a quick overview of who am I and what I have done so far. I have been in the cybersecurity industry for almost 2 decades, and I have been involved in various areas of cybersecurity, including cloud security, governance, risk and compliance, and I'm in most of the areas of cybersecurity. I'm also promoter of Women in Cybersecurity and board member of WCS. I'm also national and international speaker on cybersecurity topics, and some of the certifications that I've done. And I've also been recently recognized as one of the top 10 women cybersecurity leaders globally. And my Twitter and LinkedIn account details are here if you want to get in touch and stay updated on cybersecurity. So talking about cloud computing, what is cloud computing? It's basically the computer services over the web. It is also known as on-demand computing service. Cloud allows your business to use the software, platform, or infrastructure on the internet as a service with the pay-as-you-go model. So you have the computers hosted on the web. So you can just use it on demand. So whenever you need it, you use it. Whenever you don't need it, you switch it off. Unlike the data center, which is always on, and whereas in cloud computing, it is like whenever you need it, you can pay for it, and whenever you don't need it, you just unsubscribe for that service. So here we are talking about the cloud computing models. There are three well-known cloud computing models: software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. There is, of course, security as a service, or rather anything as a service. So, however, these three are the top cloud computing models that are being used by most of the organizations and also provided by the top cloud service providers. So software as a service is basically, just to give an example, Salesforce, if you're aware of, wherein you have email as a service like Office 365, you have virtual desktop, you have communication, you have games, you have CRM, which is available as a software which you can subscribe to and start using it. And the best example, like I mentioned, is Salesforce, where you can subscribe to using Salesforce, and then which is hosted on the cloud, and you can start using the software. And you just need to pay when you use it, and when you don't use it, you don't pay for it. Then you have platform as a service. Azure platform as a service is one of the well-known PaaS provider. So in PaaS, basically you have your databases, web servers, development tools, and execution runtime, which you can use the PaaS environment to host your platform. And there are providers like Azure, AWS, Google who provide the platform as a service, and it can also be on your private cloud as well, and private as well as public cloud. Now, coming to the next one is, of course, infrastructure as a service. Example is AWS infrastructure as a service. We have Rackspace, where even Azure provides infrastructure as a service, where you have your virtual machines, servers, storage, load balancers, network, which is readily available for you to add in the those required servers in form of virtual machines or containers. So whenever you need additional servers, you just go there and request for it, and you can just start using it immediately. You don't need to wait for days together, like in case of your data center, where you need to go through the entire procurement process, and then you need to make sure that the server has come in, delivered, and all those hassles you are saved from if you use infrastructure as a service here in the cloud environment. Some of the insights on cloud deployment strategy: basically 42% of organizations in one of the surveys say that their primary cloud deployment strategy is multi-cloud model, and followed by hybrid models, which is 30%, and single cloud deployment is 25%. Organizations are increasingly leveraging more than one cloud provider for a number of reasons, including high availability, disaster recovery, and multi-vendor sourcing efficiencies and risk mitigation. So what I have seen is most of the organization go for hybrid model, where you can actually have on-prem as well as you can have multiple public clouds like Azure as well as AWS, depending on the requirement, as well as the data that needs to be hosted on the cloud, as well as you need to consider the regulatory requirements as well. Now let's look at the on-prem versus cloud architecture, where basically what we are trying to say here is, if we are basically here comparing the on-premise versus cloud and how it makes Why does an organization need to move to the cloud? So basically, an organization needs to move to the cloud. There are a couple of advantages to that. Main ones are the flexibility that you get when you are using the cloud, enhanced flexibility and mobility. So when you want to use some of the software within your organization, you can always subscribe on your cloud, and which allows your employees to log in from anywhere and work from anywhere when they are working on the cloud. So cloud technology allows to cut down the cost of your business. It also allows you to monitor the entire business quite efficiently and allows anywhere, anytime business. So that's how the flexibility is one of the big advantage of cloud. Then another advantage is scalability when it comes to growing your business. The traditional, you go and purchase the servers, storage, and other, go through the entire procurement process, which is time consuming. So basically, if you want to, um, uh, if you are considering cloud, then scalability is one of the options where you can just add in your workloads, add in the servers, virtual machines, containers as you require, and then add in the storage, database as you require, and then scale as you require, scale up and scale down when you don't need it. So that's how you can save on the additional cost. Another advantage is pay as you go model. So whenever you are using the cloud services, you pay for it, mainly from the public cloud perspective. And whenever you are not using it, you don't pay for it. So in case of on-prem, you are like, it's 24/7 on, right? So that's one of the advantage of cloud. Now talking about CAPEX versus OPEX model, that is on the capital expenditure and operational expenditure, cloud is cost effective if you do the calculations properly and use it in an optimal manner. Cloud can be quite cost effective compared to your on-prem model. So that needs to be something during your planning phase. You need to come up with the cost effectiveness of using cloud, and that's where including the security solutions, so that as a CISO or a security professional, you make sure that security solutions are included in those calculations of CAPEX versus OPEX model, so that later on it's not a surprise for the cloud team that the security part was not included and it gets added later on to the cost. Another advantage is a quite big advantage, is rapid implementation and time to value, because when it comes to servers, on-prem solutions, definitely it takes a lot of time to do implementation. However, when it comes to cloud, you can rapidly implement it in minutes, right? It's not like a couple of months. It's, you can just go there, use a SaaS application, subscribe to it, and start using it. So it's quite immediate. And in terms of return on investment and impact, also is realized quite rapidly compared to the on-prem solutions. I have seen organizations moving from on-prem to cloud because of the return on investment is quite good, and as well as the implementation time is saved and the resource time is saved as well, and they can focus on other things. Another advantage is enhanced and robust security. Now when it comes to the cloud, you actually have those security solutions available, which you can subscribe on the cloud. You don't need to go and purchase a security solution, firewall, IDS, IPS, again through the entire procurement process, get them delivered, or the licensing and other stuff. So here on the cloud, you have your encryption, which is native to the cloud. You don't need a third-party encryption solutions. You don't need, even if third-party, you can just start using it immediately. And while cloud provides the tools to encrypt and secure data, ultimately it's the responsibility of the cloud user to properly implement and follow the best practices. However, as I mentioned, these kind of security solutions that is available in the cloud is quite robust, and it can be utilized by the organizations that are on the cloud, public or private. So when it is coming to the decision on why move to the cloud, these are some of the key reasons the organizations need to look into while they are moving into the cloud, and whether it makes sense for them to move from on-prem to the cloud. These are the Gartner statistics on information security spending in cloud, like cloud access broker software. The spending has increased to, it's now like 46.2% in one of the surveys that they had conducted. Encryption software is 23.3%, threat intelligence is 28.6%, privileged access management 17%, and tokenization is like 14.2%. This is by segment survey that was done for the period of 2017 to 2022 to understand the current cloud adoption as well as how it would be in the future. So considering this, definitely we can say that the cloud adoption has increased over a period of time. Looking at another survey where public cloud market revenue worldwide from 2012 to 2026 in billion US dollars, you can see that while it is in 2019 to 28, by 2026 it's going to be 521.8. That's the prediction. So it's like going to be double the public cloud market revenue, which makes it very clear that the cloud adoption is going to increase, and the information security spending will be categorized based on how it is highlighted here. It could be something additional spending as well, but these are some of the key top information security spending based on the survey. Here we are seeing the enterprise sensitivity in the cloud. What is the distribution and percentage? So mainly the organizations are using storage solutions. Many organizations are using Google Suite, Office 365 is like 31%. You have Salesforce at 16%. You have ServiceNow at 8%. And you have Shadow IT services at 5%. You have custom applications, which is hosted on the cloud, like 13%. Sorry, it's 11%, and AWS, Azure, and Google is like 13%. You have Slack and other collaboration, team collaboration solutions, Google Docs being used at 2%, and you have Dropbox at 7%. So there was a survey done which says 43% is storage, 42% is CRM, ERP, marketing, and automation solutions, then productivity applications at 41%, and followed by IT operations applications at 39%. So there are these two surveys that shows that what kind of sensitive data is being stored in the cloud. So depending on this, you need to make sure that the right security solutions are implemented based on the kind of solutions that are being used, and make sure that the sensitive data is secure and following the regulatory requirements. These are some of the latest data breaches on the cloud. So most of the cloud data breaches that you see is on AWS S3 bucket. Researchers find that 540 million Facebook user records are exposed on the servers. So AWS S3 bucket is getting easily compromised because the S3 bucket rules are not implemented properly. The security policies are not implemented properly for the bucket. So there are 257,000 legal documents leaked by unprotected Elasticsearch servers. So the Elasticsearch server is used by most of the organizations to store the documents. So they are not protected, and there are no security solutions that are used or security policies that are implemented. So from that perspective, they get leaked quite easily. Now looking at the one of the data breach on MongoDB, there was unprotected server which exposed details of 12.5 million women on MongoDB. So an unprotected 140 plus gig database led to the discovery of huge collection of email records, with many of them also containing detailed personal identified information, PII data. So these are some of the top data breaches. There are a couple of them which I'm going to discuss in the next slide. Some of the other data breaches that we have seen in the recent past is Uber was fined twice for euro 385,000 and I mean in 2016 as well as in 2017. They were fined for database that was compromised in Europe as well as in UK. So two hackers compromised Uber's GitHub, which contained access to keys to AWS, and hackers store PII of 57 million individuals held data for ransom and was publicly disclosed late in 2017. So Uber actually did not have a proper incident response process, and they actually did not disclose it as soon as they came to know about the hack, and they tried to hide it, and later on they're subject to fine for the data breach. So that's something which the organization needs to, considering the lessons learned, and have a proper incident response process for any kind of breach, data breach in an organization. Then there is pretty famous one, the Capital One, where a software engineer in Seattle hacked into the server holding customer information for Capital One and obtained the personal data of over 100 million people in one of the largest thefts of data. Paige Thompson left a trail online for investigators to follow, as she actually hacked into the AWS servers, because she was formerly she worked for Amazon Web Services, which hosted the Capital One database, and she was able to breach she was able to get into the data and post it on the darknet. So that's something. That's one of the recent data breaches. Then you have Accenture, where the AWS S3 storage buckets were not secure, and again, one of the cyber resilience startup, UpGuard, discovered in its cyber risk survey that they had left 4 AWS storage buckets unsecure. And then you have Verizon, where Nice System, third-party vendor working with Verizon, committed a configuration blunder on AWS S3 bucket, which exposed addresses, account details, and PIN numbers of millions of US-based Verizon customers. So this incident also highlighted the fact that how alarming is the storage of sensitive info on third-party vendors. So you need to make sure that third-party risk assessment is performed on a regular basis, and they have the right controls in place so that their cloud environment is not exposed. So you should have the proper SLAs, agreements, and a governance model to make sure that your third-party vendor is having the right security controls and their cloud is not subject to data breach. Then there are a couple of others like Booz Allen Hamilton. Then you have Republican National Committee data breach, and you have election system and software services, which has caused data breach in the recent past. So what are the lessons learned from these data breaches? We need to look at the top threats in the cloud. Some of the top threats are the applications, data, and user access is risky if they are left uncontrolled, and if there is a lack of visibility into your cloud environment. Your password stored in clear text format and stored on GitHub or Bitbucket can be a top threat. If you are sharing your password, API keys are exposed. Your keys leaked in many ways, such as hard-coded code repo misconfigurations, code repo hacked, phishing exploits, unsecured and exposed storage buckets, like we saw in some of the examples, such as S3 bucket or Google Cloud Storage, exposed databases such as MongoDB, Elasticsearch, Redis, which can lead to data leakage. So you need to make sure that these are secure, and you have a proper hygiene process for storing your passwords, and you don't just let your developers store your passwords on GitHub or Bitbucket, for example. Then Other top threats are misconfigured servers and unauthorized access. So if the servers are not secure enough and don't have encryption enabled, then definitely, and if you have default server configurations left out there on the cloud, then definitely the hackers can easily gain access to your servers. And then you have risky websites, which can lead the bad guys to get into the websites if your websites have codes which can easily be hacked, like your forms on your website are subject to SQL injection attacks or cross-site scripting. So if those are not if you don't perform proper vulnerability assessment, penetration testing on a regular basis, and if you don't have a proper visibility into your websites that is hosted on the cloud and the workloads, then definitely the bad guys can gain access to through your website. Then there is threats from the insider. We saw in case of Capital One, the earlier employee had access to the Capital One servers through Amazon Web Services, or it could be some of the insiders which might cause harm to your data. So you need to make sure you have proper visibility into your cloud environment and you have proper DLP as well as user behavior analytics kind of solutions that are implemented to monitor the user behavior within your environment. Then lack of cloud security awareness and user hygiene is one of the another top threat that is causing the data breach as well as data getting exposed. The users might just click on some of the phishing sites and then your cloud data gets exposed, or they might share the passwords just to save on the subscription cost. They might share the passwords, and which might lead to data breach and unauthorized access as well. Then breaking and entering attacks such as brute force attacks, remote code execution, container escape, supply chain attacks. These are some of the common attacks that will be one of the threats that we are seeing in the cloud. Then you have malware, cryptojacking, ransomware leading to data breach. These are some of the attacks that have happened in the recent past and which should be considered in terms of the right controls that are in place to make sure such attacks are you don't fall prey to such attacks and you have the right controls in place for remediation. So some of the cloud security frameworks and standards that you need to consider in your cloud strategy is NIST Cybersecurity Framework and Cloud Computing Reference Architecture. You can refer to the NIST website for that. You have Cloud Security Alliance Cloud Control Matrix, CCM. You can refer to CSA website for more information. Because of the time limit, I cannot discuss everything in detail here. You have ISO 27018. It's the guidance for cloud service provider who process personally identifiable information. And then you have MITRE or MITRE, in whichever way you spell it. So MITRE attack framework for predicting, detecting, and investigating advanced cyber threat. And the website link is here if you need to refer that. And most of the organizations, they consider this attack framework when they are trying to do threat hunting, or they are trying to find the threat actors for predicting, detecting, and investigating the advanced cyber attacks. So it's quite updated framework. So I suggest you go and refer this and useful in considering in your organization. So now talking about building an effective cloud security strategy, right? So when you are talking to your cloud team, make sure that you are involved since the beginning of the discussions when you are migrating from on-prem to cloud, or you are looking at moving some of your critical or non-critical applications or platform, or using the infrastructure moving to the cloud. So as a cloud security officer or as a chief information security officer, you need to make sure that you are involved since the beginning. Most important strategies that needs to be considered is choose the right cloud partner. Make sure that the cloud partner that you choose has certified for ensuring cloud security, provides the data visible solutions. You should make sure that you have the service level agreement in place and the metrics are clearly defined and you can measure those metrics on a regular basis. You need to make sure that the data portability options are available. Like if you want to move from AWS to Azure, you can port your data easily and you should not get stuck into get locked into one vendor. Then you should also consider infrastructure and data availability. You should make sure that you are allowed to perform regular risk assessments, as well as the cloud provider performs regular risk assessment, vulnerability assessment, and penetration testing, and shares the report with the cloud consumer or the cloud user. You need to make sure that the data protection on the cloud as per the global and local country specific regulatory and data protection requirements are fulfilled by the cloud provider or partner, and also offers the data localization because some of the regulations ask for the data to be localized. For example, RBI or even the GDPR to some extent. Then you also make sure that the cloud provider or partner allows the right to audit. If you have to audit some of their infrastructure, platform, or software, they allow this to a certain extent. Of course, they won't allow you to visit their data centers and look into where your data resides, but to a certain extent, they should allow you to audit. And it's clearly defined in the contract as well as the SLAs. Then you need to look at make sure that you have the proper cloud governance model or strategy defined, which is also supported by the Cloud Center of Excellence if you have a cloud COE defined within your organizations or it's planning to be defined. This should include the people, process, and technology. Cloud governance is people, process, and technology associated with your cloud infrastructure. Governance involves a framework with a set of policies and standard practices. This could include policies for cost optimization, resiliency, security, or compliance, and involved in the planning, architecture, acquisition, deployment, operation, and management of cloud computing capability. So as part of your cloud governance strategy from security perspective, you need to make sure that you have a well-defined cloud security roles and responsibilities. You have cloud security and privacy policies and procedures defined, or make sure that it is defined. You should have audit and compliance to regulatory requirements such as PCI DSS, SOX, FFIC, GDPR, RBI, and country-specific data protection requirements, to name a few of them. There are quite a few regulatory requirements. These are some of the top ones that I have listed here. So these are the key ones when you are coming up with the cloud governance strategy. Make sure these are included from the security perspective. Now, talking about the zero trust model, it is quite effective when it comes to cloud kind of environment, because when you are using a public cloud and if you are implementing zero trust model, you can make sure that your cloud workloads in a kind of shared kind of environment is secure, because zero trust talks about identity and access management and network microsegmentation. So it's a micro-segmented approach with granular protections applied to your data and controls implemented at all the points of access, including mobile devices, cloud workloads, and corporate networks. It basically isolates the data particularly useful in multi-tenant cloud. So make sure you have a zero trust model on your cloud. Then you develop data visibility, data classification, and data protection strategy for cloud, including encryption of data at rest in motion, and you have proper data masking for regulatory requirements such as GDPR. Ensure security by design strategy built into the cloud, so that from the design phase, its planning and design phase itself, you have the security team involved in the cloud strategy. Ensure robust identity and access management strategy for cloud with least privilege access strategy adopted. Then develop and define promote shared responsibility model for security in the cloud as well as off the cloud, because you need to make sure that it's properly defined what is the responsibility of the cloud provider as well as the cloud consumer. Use as much as possible automation orchestration solutions which uses AI and ML wherever possible for AI detection, remediation, incident handling, which includes user behavior analytics, used to identify potential security risks by establishing a usage baseline over time to identify abnormal cloud activity, underlying machine learning capabilities, work in tandem with human-aided behavior analysis to find the proverbial needle in the haystack of existing security incident data. Develop DevSecOps strategy for your agile and DevOps software development and operations environment on cloud, including automated security testing of CI/CD pipeline and container security, as well as workload security. Make sure you perform regular risk assessments of the cloud and in the cloud. So these are some of the top 10 cloud security strategy that you should make sure is part of your cloud strategy as from overall organization perspective. This is a high level overview of cloud, how the cloud governance lifecycle looks like, wherein you come up with the cloud strategy and planning. You have the cloud business case, cloud pilot is done, then you have cloud program, go, no go, kind of a decision that is done. Once that is decided, then you have your cloud architecture design and deployment that comes in, where you define your architecture and standards, cloud solution design, cloud security model, cloud integration, then you perform a QA and test. Once that is done, you have cloud acquisition and contracting, where you acquire the vendor and solution selection. You have acquisition and contracts. You have contract terms and conditions, SLAs, quality of service defined. Then you have deployment and onboarding and access and consumption. So all this is defined in this phase. And then you have resource provisioning and management, where you define capacity planning and demand management, resource management, provisioning, metering, billing and accounting, cloud management and monitoring, operations and support, maintenance, versioning and sustainment. So in this phase, I'm not going in detail in each of these because then again this presentation is going to be longer, but these are the standard life cycle of cloud governance that is followed in an organization. So once you are done with resource provisioning and management, then you have cloud contingency planning and resource or provider management, where you need to make sure you have cloud contingency planning in place, you have cloud bursting defined, you have cloud provider switching if you want to switch from various providers between AWS, Azure, Google, or any other provider that you have. And then you have cloud migration from public to private and offboarding. So this is the typical cloud governance lifecycle that is defined in an organization, or if you have not defined, you need to make sure you have included these areas in your cloud governance lifecycle, and security should be embedded as part of this lifecycle. Here we are looking at the shared responsibility model. This is, of course, I have used the source from AWS, which defines the shared responsibility model quite well. So if you look here, AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud, and the customers have their choice of security configurations in the cloud. So when it comes to customers, you need to make sure your platform applications, identity and access management is properly defined. You have your OS, network and firewall configuration, client-side data encryption, server-side data encryption, network traffic protection. So these are there as a basic controls in place. On top of this, you can have additional controls as well. From the AWS responsibility perspective, AWS has the global infrastructure, availability zones, regions, edge locations, which are secured by AWS. And they also provide certification confirming that they are compliant to the regulatory requirements like PCI DSS and other regulatory requirements. So this needs to be clearly defined in your contract as well as the SLAs that are defined with the cloud provider. Talking about the cloud security innovations, some of the top cloud security innovations that you should consider in your cloud strategy is, some of them are like data visibility solutions, where it gives visibility into your cloud environment. You have DLP solutions, you have cloud access security broker solutions, CASB, for example, Netscope, you have CyberArk, you have McAfee, BitPlus. Basically, CASB solutions has 4 pillars. Like data protection, threat protection, identity and access management. Then you have visibility into the cloud. When it comes to identity and access management, we need to make sure it has the multi-factor authentication included. Then it comes to DevSecOps solutions on cloud, for example, Contrast, Tenable, Voratech are some of the solutions which you need to consider, or you can consider anything in the market. It's just some of the examples that I'm giving here for securing your CI/CD pipeline. Then you have automation and threat detection and response, for example, SOAR 2.0 kind of solution. Then threat intelligence, threat analytics, user behavior analytics kind of solutions for cloud and its integration with the on-prem SIEM solution. For example, Azure Sentinel, Azure Security Central, AWS CloudTrail, and you can integrate this with your on-prem SIEM solutions like Splunk or IBM QRadar or whichever SIEM solutions that you're using. You need to make sure that your solutions that you implement provides crypto mining prevention and detection solutions which are available on public cloud, and you can subscribe to them, and it can be implemented on private and hybrid cloud environment as well. You need to also make sure you have the audit and GRC solutions for cloud, for example, AWS Cloud Inspector, so that you make sure that regularly your cloud environment is audited and you get the reports on what are the gaps, and you can fix those identified gaps, and you also have this report then can be submitted to your auditors as well. So thanks everyone for your time to go through these slides and listen to my presentation. Hope it was useful. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can connect me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and then I can respond back to you. And then surely we can I can help you wherever possible, but within the limits, of course. Sure. So thanks for your time and have a great day or great evening, depending on when you're listening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.